Do I really need two hearing aids? Today I want to talk about a very common question I'm getting in my clinical practice on day-to-day life. That is when people had their hearing test and the discussion turns to hearing aids, it comes up sooner or later, do I really need two? Now, let's be honest about that question normally means, because most of the time it means, can I get away with one? Welcome to Earman Dan. If you're new here, my name is Daniel and a very warm welcome. I'm a hearing care professional and the owner of Ear Studio in Castle Hill in Sydney. But more importantly, I spend my days helping people, not just to hear better, but actually to understand better and leave behind the challenges of hearing loss. And in this channel, I break down how hearing really works, how the hearing care landscape looks in Australia, and what you can do to get the best possible outcome. Now, I invite you to follow along in this journey. Look, I understand the question very well. Two hearing aids cost more than one. There are two devices to wear. There are two devices to manage. So it's a completely fair question, especially early on, but it also needs a proper answer. The short version of this: if you have hearing loss in both ears, then in both cases you should have two hearing aids and you're much better off than just with one. Now let's unpack why and in which cases you may be okay with just one device. We hear with two ears, but more importantly, we hear with just one brain receiving information from two ears. That is how the system was designed to work from the very beginning. Your brain is constantly comparing what comes in from the left and what comes in from the right. And it uses tiny differences in loudness, in frequency and timing to work out where sounds are coming from the front, from the back, or from the sides, and it can be quite accurate. And that helps us to separate speech a bit better from background noise and to create a more balanced picture of what's going on around you. So when both ears have hearing loss and you only help one of them, you're not really giving the brain what it is built to work with. You're helping one side, but you're leaving the other one completely behind. And yes, one hearing aid can absolutely be better than nothing at all. I do not want to pretend that that's not the case. For speech understanding in a quiet situation, one hearing aid is often enough. But it also has significant downsides and carries some real risks. If someone starts with one hearing aid because of budget or because of other perceptions of they want to ease themselves into it, there is still benefit of one device, but it is a compromise, and again, it carries risks. And it's not usually the ideal endpoint when both ears actually need the help. A lot of people think that one hearing aid should be enough because the sound is so much louder with just one, but hearing is not just a matter of general loudness. It's direction and balance that actually matter a lot when it comes to hearing. The ear that is closer to the sound source often gets a cleaner signal, and then the head shadow effect blocks and changes how it sounds on the other side. In background noise, those little differences become actually really important and can make or break a conversation. That is why people with two hearing aids generally do a lot better at knowing where sound is coming from and do better at following speech in situation with background noise more easily than those people who have hearing loss in both ears but only have one aided ear. Just think about a few everyday examples, like you're in the car with a person speaking on your poorer side, or you're at a dinner and someone on the bad side says something while there's just a lot of noise in the restaurant. Or you're walking with a friend and they are on the wrong side. In all those situations, helping both ears gives the brain a much better chance at performing well. Now, one hearing aid may help in some moments, but it often turns life into a constant exercise of repositioning. And some people even have neck issues because of the constant head turning. You keep turning your head all the time to find the right angle. We do that quite naturally. And in day-to-day life, you try to keep positioning yourself in the right spot. You go to a dinner and you always need to sit on the far right or far left, that you have the people on your good ear. So basically, you just keep compensating all the time. And that is exhausting. Even if you do not really notice how much you're doing it, other people around you can actually notice that quite a bit, that you always do certain things in certain situations. Now, another issue is that when one ear is consistently left unaided, despite needing help, you're not getting the fuller and more balanced input that usually gives the best outcomes. In some cases, wearing only one hearing aid actually has detrimental effects. Now, one of the reasons why this topic gets confusing is because not all hearing losses are the same. If you have a hearing loss in both ears and both ears are aidable, then the discussion is usually about whether you should have two conventional hearing aids. In that situation, the answer is commonly yes. But if you have hearing loss mainly one-sided, or one ear has been affected much more severely than the other, then that becomes a different conversation. For example, after a sudden hearing loss, one ear may end up with a poor result while the other ear remains 100%. And in that case, we only really need one hearing device to address the issue. So please don't take this video as like me saying that everybody needs two hearing aids. There are some special cases. I don't want to get too deep, but it can happen that one ear is, for example, so far damaged that it can't be helped with a hearing aid or sometimes even cochlear implants. In those cases, we can't use a hearing aid, and then you don't need two. We may need to work with the other ear, the one that is still working, and maybe do something like a cross where we transmit sounds from one side to the other using a special device. Now, let's address the money side for a moment, because pretending that cost is not part of this would not be appropriate. Cost does matter, and for some people, cost is the exact reason that they're trying to see whether one side could do the job just fine. And I think that should be talked about openly and respectfully and not be brushed aside, because it is a real consideration for some people. If you're choosing one hearing aid when two are recommended, then in many cases what you're choosing is a compromise for cost reasons. And when you purely shop on price or purely on the hope of getting away with one, you skip the most important question, which is, what does my hearing loss actually require? And that's the real question. If the answer is one, then fine. But if the answer is two, then that is for a very particular reason, and it should be treated as such. That should be treated as a recommendation based on how hearing actually works with two inputs. Let me say two more things that are really crucial here. Firstly, our ears are not for conversations only. They actually have a much more deeper kind of primal role to play at first, and that is for your safety. The two ears combined with the brain, they act a little bit like a radar at all times, even when you're sleeping. They kind of constantly monitor what's going on around you. They detect sounds, they know where they're coming from, and then they identify those sounds, and they assign a meaning and importance to them. The brain chooses to wake you up for some sounds, like a baby crying when you have a newborn baby, but the brain won't wake you up for other sounds, such as the trucks going down the road that have been there for 10 years. Even while you're sitting in your office or you go about your day-to-day life, the brain constantly creates a map of what's going on around you. Where people are, is a door open or closed? You can actually hear that if it snaps into the lock or not, and the brain makes note of that. It knows where the cat is, if the kids closed the front gate, and all of those type of things. And based on that map, the brain actually makes safety decisions of what to do and what not to do and what to pay attention to. That becomes very important when crossing a road or walking around a corner. If we only treat one ear when two are needed, the brain actually can't do any of that. And it really struggles to determine the direction of sound. And that is a huge aspect that affects your day-to-day comfort and safety. The brain just doesn't have this sound map, and it kind of always feels unsafe and on edge. All the time needs to kind of rely more on the eyes to monitor what's going around you. But while the ears can actually hear all around and to the back, the eyes can't see backwards. So that's the first point. It's actually a safety issue. Secondly, and that's a really important point, the brain actually suffers when we do half the job with the ears. When we are aiding only one side, while both should have been aided, the brain will always favor the ear and the processing part of that ear of the side that is aided. And that can kind of lead to the brain switching off the other side or the processing to the other side, because resources are deployed for the side that actually brings in a signal. And that means that the auditory processing, the auditory deprivation aspect really accelerates much faster, and that leads to real issues later down the track, because the ear problem suddenly, or not suddenly, but over time became a brain problem. And that actually is a point that in some cases leads me as a professional to refusing to only provide one hearing aid when two are needed, because as a professional in that field, I don't want to take the responsibility. I know what's going to happen if I only give you one hearing aid. The better option here is, if it's for cost reasons, that you do two cheaper hearing devices than one better one. So let's bring that to a close. If both hearing aids have aidable hearing loss, you should have generally two hearing aids, as that is the better option and it is strongly recommended. If only one ear is affected or one ear is not aidable at all, it becomes a different situation and you're likely quite okay with just one hearing device. But above all, do not start with the question, can I get away with one? Because you kind of restrict yourself from the outset. Start with the question is, what does my hearing actually need? That question usually leads to a much better outcome, because your hearing affects every waking second of your life. As usual, if you've got any questions, drop them in the comments below or reach out via email. I may actually do a follow-up video on one-sided hearing loss specifically, because there's a lot to say about that and it sometimes causes a lot of confusion. Until the next time, I wish you all the best and bye-bye.